Radio for Oxfordshire.
7 minutes after 9, morning to you. Over a third of people in the UK have admitted that they're not very competent swimmers, or actually can't swim at all. Does that sound like you? Come on and share your stories this morning. 03459311111. This is research by the Swimming Teachers Association. Been asking you, I think you're confident in the water.
Not very good at all. Over the time where you don't swim, you always feel, I'm fine if there's not a lot of people around me, but I'm not really a safe swimmer, so I wouldn't go out of my depth.
I could save my own life, but it's not something that I really enjoy doing. I get really self-conscious in a swimming costume or a tankini or whatever I'm wearing. I get really, really body conscious. And I think that might be the same for quite a few women as well.
Not confident at all, I don't swim. No, I tried when I was young, but never got the hang of it. So my grandmother used to take me to North Heathsea. They had the pools there, the different sizes, and she used to be on the side and say, do this, do that, do the other, and I used to slowly sink to the bottom.
Pretty confident. Yeah, I've been swimming since I was about the age of 10. So about 30 years, quite a while. I learnt to swim, probably 9 or 10. So I'd have proper lessons. Personally, I don't swim in swimming pools. The only time I ever swim now is when I'm on holiday abroad.
Very confident. Having learned to swim at the age of 50, I just felt it was time I did. Having missed the fun all those years of being in the sea with my daughter. And then I had frozen shoulders, and to do the backstroke, which I still do, was the best treatment. So, hey for swimming.
Before then, you didn't know how to swim?
No, not scared. I wasn't. Well, out of my depth, yes. It took me a long time to swim in the deep end, which I now prefer. I love that. Cavorting around and floating vertically.
Well, I think it's one of those stats that makes you think, well, 1 in 3 admit that they're not competent or can't swim at all. That's a worry, isn't it? You think of the scenarios that you can be into where there's water. So talking to Catherine earlier, she was saying it was actually when we were flooded that really prompted me to sort it out. She was 42 when she started. I'm intrigued to find out a bit more about Lynn Mathieson's story. Lynn's sitting next to us in the studio. Hi, thanks for coming in to talk to us. So a couple of years ago, you couldn't swim. Now?
I can swim breaststroke, backstroke, front crawl, and feel very comfortable in the water.
Okay, so it's a bit of a success story to share here then. So why couldn't you swim? What was up?
Well, I went for lessons at school when I was 10. I think probably the incident that put me off was I fell back into the pool. Couldn't regain my balance, got really frightened, and even worse, when I got out, nobody seemed to have noticed. So obviously in my mind, I thought I could have drowned. And so I spent 2 years at school lessons trying not to learn to swim, because once you could swim, you had to go in the deep end. And that was just too frightening.
So you deliberately didn't learn?
I just sort of played around in the shallow end, pretending I was trying. And then I had a go when I was about 40, because I thought I really should learn to swim. And I learned a little bit of breaststroke, but it wasn't terribly successful. And then finally, 2 years ago, I had one of those big birthdays, and I thought, right, going to do it this year. And went off and took some lessons.
So it's been nagging away at you then for a while?
Yeah. Well, when you go on holiday and you see everybody in the pool enjoying themselves, and you sort of, standing tentatively in the shallow end and going in the sea. And I just felt very uncomfortable being on water as well as in water. So just the fact I couldn't swim. So if I was in a boat, I was conscious of the fact if anything happened, if I was sailing, then I was a non-swimmer.
Yeah.
And so I really decided that I would go for it and have a sort of last-ditch attempt, really.
So that fear was sort of sitting away in the... I don't want to sound like some sort of amateur psychoanalyst here, but that's obviously been sitting away in the back of your head, and that's really what stopped you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I signed up at my local gym for one-to-one lessons. And after about, I couldn't put my head underwater or do anything like that. So after about 4 or 5 months, I could do a sort of a half a length of breaststroke with my head under. But I couldn't get any further. And I realised that although I'd learnt to swim, actually I hadn't overcome my fear of water.
Right. So you did the technicals and all, as Al was saying there, you find it hard to coordinate all things together. So
that was starting to come, but I couldn't. My worst nightmare was the thought of floating. and floating on my back.
Wow.
In particular, and I couldn't do anything like push off or anything. As soon as I was in the water, I had to sort of frantically start swimming. So I decided that if I was going to get any further, I had to overcome the fear of water, and that's when I decided to go off on a residential course for a few days, sort of, last ditch attempt really. And so I went off to Wales. I found a course online where they taught using the Alexander technique, and I thought, well, let's have a go at it.
The Alexander technique. I'll get you to add some more to that, Lynn, but let's just bring in our man here, because Ian Cross, who set up Swimming Without Stress in Oxfordshire 10 years ago, and now the company is based in Wales. Ian, hi.
Hi, Howard.
Nice to talk to you. Thanks for your time this morning. I mean, hearing about Lynn's tale here, she's sharing it with everybody. That's this fear factor. I mean, how do you get people over the fear factor?
Well, it's a physical problem really, as much as a psychological one, and it's because the problem that people have is they think they've got to kind of do something in the water. So Lynn's lessons that she described when she went to the gym, it's that she was trying to sort of do stuff, and it's a bit like sort of running before you can walk. So you've got your travel guy was talking about when he tries to swim, it's like standing in a hammock. But the first step is to lie in the hammock, and that's easy. So it's all about getting people to relax in the water and trust the support of the water.
Right, so there's a confidence thing you've got to build, for sure. Is that different when you're working with children to adults? Because I guess we carry a lot of baggage with us as grown-ups.
Yeah, but it's the same sort of stuff. Children have the same kind of misconceptions, but they're better at kind of winging it, and they kind of develop confidence by more and more exposure, because once they can swim, they tend to play a lot in the water, which adults kind of also need to do. But yeah, I mean, everybody has a kind of instinctive fear of water, really, fear of drowning. So you've got to learn two things, really. You've got to learn to breathe properly into the water, which is much easier than people tend to think. And you've got to, most importantly of all, learn to trust the water to support you. So as Lynn said, you've got to be able to float. It's no good trying to sort of swim, coordinate yourself if you don't believe the water's going to support you. And a lot of adult swimming lessons are kind of based on that sort of misconception. The people come with a misconception anyway, and teachers don't do enough to kind of get rid of that misconception that you've got to learn to do something. I mean, when Louis was interviewing people there, the girl said she went to learn to swim at the Hinkley pool, and she said someone was on the side of the pool saying, do this, do that. And that's the problem, really. Do this, do that. You've got to learn to do nothing first.
That's an approach I've never heard before, Ian. That's in itself opened my eyes and ears to this. What about your magic moment then, when you actually swam for the first time? So this is the mechanic side of it. So what was that like? Just give us that moment.
Well, it was still very tentative. I think probably the biggest sort of magic moments have come like when I did my first length of front crawl. Because the thought that I could, first length of backstroke, because my worst nightmare had been the thought of floating on my back. So that was probably a bigger moment of, I did, and I have a very, very good traditional swimming teacher, slightly different to the Alexander technique at my pool, incredibly motivating, will get in the water with me to help me. But I did go out and punch the air as I left the gym, both times when I did the backstroke and the front crawl, because if I'd realised how technical it was, I'd probably never started it, but I've done it now.
And what's that
just
like
recently?
From your side, Ian, when you get that success, are you punching the air as well?
Yeah, sometimes a little bit inwardly, yeah. I mean, tend to be a bit British about these things, but the high fives are, few and far between. But yes, it is rewarding to see people do things they didn't think they'd be able to do.
So, for anyone in Lynn's situation, then what would you say, Ian, sort of professionally to people? What sort of help do they need?
The situation she was in, well, when she came to us, Lynn could swim a bit, couldn't she? But I mean, a lot of people come to us as non-swimmers. But if people come to us and say, I'm a non-swimmer with fear of water, we can say we can definitely help you, and it's going to be much more straightforward and easy than you think, actually, because you need to know the basics. You need to get the basics right, and once you've got those basics of being able to float and glide and rest in the water and trust the water to support you, you can do anything, as Lynn's shown.
Ian, lovely to talk to you. Thank you. Ian Cross, so set up Swimming Without Stress, as I say, in Oxfordshire 10 years ago. He's taken the company to Wales, and a great success too. And you are part of that success, Lynn. So
Thank you.
where do you go from here then? What's your next thing? I joked earlier with Catherine about swimming the channel. Are you going to do something a little less
Possibly
ridiculous?
not. I've sort of obviously got to get very comfortable swimming out of my depth now,
Yeah.
so that's sort of the last challenge there. And now I'm getting used to being in water. I've sort of got my eye on perhaps trying diving, which
Right.
again is something I never thought I would do, because I now understand how my body works and moves underwater much better. I'm much more comfortable in water. So maybe diving, I don't know, we'll see. I like a challenge.
The undersea world of Lynn Mathieson. Wow, I'm really impressed. That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing the story with us this morning. Can you add to that? Let's have your story on the radio. 03459 311 111 this morning. Maybe you've learned to swim as an adult. Lynn tells a great story, doesn't she? Did you get some help doing it? What about that magic moment when you did it for the first time?
With exclusive access to Oxfordshire's travel cameras.
This is BBC Radio Oxford Travel.
How are we doing on the roads? Here's Al.